Real quick, before I start this video, I just want to let you know that I've been having some issues with YouTube lately in terms of I don't think it's pushing to all of my subscribers or even trying to get my videos out to new people. If you're already subscribed or haven't subscribed yet and you do, make sure to hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I upload a new video. You don't even have to watch it right then when I upload it, but then at least you know when there is a new video out, right? So the other day I saw somebody on Instagram talking about how all these different countries like Ukraine, South Korea, Japan, Israel, they're all vassal states for the United States. So I was going back and forth with Gemini about it, and this is what it had to say. In this video we need to talk about power, not just who has it, but how they pull the strings. You probably heard people throwing around the term vassal state lately to describe countries like Japan, South Korea, Israel, or Ukraine. It sounds intense, right? Like something straight out of medieval feudalism. Critics use it to argue that these nations have completely surrendered their independence to the United States. But is that actually true? In this video, we're breaking down what a vassal state really means in modern politics, how the Western and Eastern alliances stack up against the world wars, and how a massive financial and geopolitical restructuring is unfolding right now in 2026, from the Strait of Hormuz to the coast of Cuba and the shifting sands of Venezuela. First, let's clear up the vocabulary. In modern geopolitics, mainstream political scientists don't really use the word vassal. Instead, they use terms like client states, strategic partners, or allies under a security umbrella. When people call a country a vassal, they're pointing out a massive asymmetry in power. They're saying a nation is so dependent on a superpower for its military survival or economic stability that it effectively does whatever that superpower wants. But here's the reality. These relationships are rarely one-way dictatorships. They're built on mutual, though often unequal, benefits. Take East Asia. Japan and South Korea host tens of thousands of US troops. To critics, that looks like an occupation. To Tokyo and Seoul, it's a cost-effective shield against a nuclear-armed North Korea and an aggressive China. In return, the US gets a permanent military foothold right on the doorstep of its biggest rivals, alongside a secure pipeline for advanced semiconductor tech. In the Middle East, Israel acts as a high-tech intelligence and military hub for the US, while oil giants like Saudi Arabia and the UAE historically anchored the petrodollar system, pricing global oil in US dollars, to cement the USD as the world's reserve currency. Finally, Ukraine. It isn't a traditional treaty ally, but from a cold, realpolitik perspective, it serves as a massive buffer state. By supporting Ukraine, the West severely weakens the military capabilities of Russia without risking the lives of its own soldiers. It's not feudalism, it's a global network of strategic leverage. So, how does this modern East versus West divide compare to the alliance system of World War I and World War II? Structurally, there are some striking similarities. The way the US acts as a central hub, connecting a wheel of regional spokes, is exactly how the British Empire managed its global network. The geographic checkpoints are identical too. In the 1940s, empires fought bitterly over the Suez Canal. Today, they fight over the Strait of Hormuz. The differences, however, are what keep us from sliding into total global annihilation. First, economic independence. In World War II, the Allies and the Axis had virtually zero trade ties. Today, the West and East are deeply entangled. The US and Europe rely heavily on Chinese manufacturing, and China relies on Western consumers to buy their goods. In that case, it creates a baseline of economic mutual destruction. Second, the nuclear deterrence. In the world wars, powers fought to an unconditional surrender because they could. Today, the presence of nuclear weapons forces superpowers to fight through proxy wars rather than direct, all-out military clashes. Third, the side switchers. Alliances today are far more fluid. Think about historical pivots. Germany and Japan went from the ultimate Axis threats to the bedrock of Western alliance. China fought alongside the Allies in both world wars, but is now the superpower anchoring the modern Eastern Bloc. Then Iran went from a Western-backed client state under the Shah to an outright adversary. Today, nations have the luxury of strategic autonomy. Look at Saudi Arabia. They rely on US weapons, yet they just joined the Eastern-leaning BRIC bloc, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and Saudi Arabia now, which they wouldn't have been able to do in 1939. Let's address the internet hyperbole about the US dollar collapsing overnight. The idea of a single physical BRICS currency meant to replace the dollar is essentially dead. Internal division broke it. Countries like India and Brazil simply don't want to destroy their relations with the West. Instead, those countries are building something more subtle. They're using digital currencies and localized banking rails to trade directly with each other, completely bypassing the Western-dominated SWIFT network. That being said, at the same time, the historical petrodollar monopoly has cracked. Saudi Arabia now accepts Chinese yen for some oil shipments, but the dollar isn't vanishing. Oil is only a fraction of global commerce, and the US dollar still makes up nearly 90% of all foreign exchange transactions. We're not seeing a total collapse, we're seeing a slow shift. Like the famous quote, "The sun is setting on the west and is rising in the east." If you want to see how this new, fluid Cold War plays out in real time, just look at what's unfolded over the first half of 2026. In the Middle East, we just witnessed a historic moment. Following the devastating 110-day war that choked off 20% of the world's oil supply, the Trump administration signed a massive memorandum of understanding with Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Iran agreed to clear its naval mines, and the US lifted its blockades. In an incredibly fragile, highly transactional truce, complete with a 60-day negotiation window, oil export waivers, and threats of future maritime tolls. Meanwhile, the US turned its sights directly onto its own hemisphere. In Cuba, Washington has launched an intense, maximum pressure campaign. Following the US military invasion in Venezuela that severed Cuba's primary source of cheap oil, the US enacted a devastating energy blockade around the island. Backed by Executive Order 14,404, the US is now using aggressive secondary sanctions to penalize any foreign bank or country doing business with Cuba. Combined with a heavy naval buildup off the coast, the island has been plunged into near-total electrical grid failure, creating the highest stakes diplomatic deadlock in the Caribbean in decades. What about Venezuela? Since the ouster of Nicolas Maduro in January, the country has entered a surreal transition. A US-backed interim government led by Delcy Rodriguez is trying to stabilize a broken state. We're seeing radical changes. In a stunning display of new security cooperation, a joint US-Venezuelan operation recently used a kinetic drone strike to eliminate the leader of the notorious Tren de Aragua mega gang. Major Western oil companies are flooding back into the country to tap into the world's largest oil reserves, and the US Embassy in Caracas has officially reopened. So, what is the takeaway from all of this? The world isn't neatly divided into rigid wartime alliances like it was in 1914 or 1939. And the countries aligned with the world's superpowers aren't helpless vassals. Instead, we're living in an era of intense hyper-transactional leverage. Superpowers are using economic blockades, digital financial networks, and targeted military strikes to redraw the map. Smaller regional players are constantly recalculating their alliances, trying to figure out which side offers the best deal for their survival. The game has undoubtedly changed. The rules are being rewritten in real time, and the stakes have never been higher. Which is why I try to preach for egalitarian communism without the hierarchy, or authoritarian dictatorial leaders, and less corporate monopolies, right? But I think I'll leave this one here for now. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and a comment of what you thought. And like I said at the start of my video, if you're already subscribed or you're going to, make sure to hit the notification bell so you see when I upload new videos. But yeah, like I said, I'll leave it here for now. I hope you enjoyed. Like I say at the end of all my vids, I love you, stay safe, good luck, and take it easy.